Welcome to Prague Update. A lot of travelers struggle with buying tickets to Prague attractions online. So in this video, I'm gonna share my tips about that and of course tell you about some new things that were introduced in our lives recently, whether we like it or not. And let's start with tickets. As you might remember, in one of our last video updates about Prague, I mentioned the early bird discount. That is a deal offered by Prague City Tourism that gives you half-price tickets to certain attractions if you buy them in the first hour after they open. Well, there's a major update about this deal, because I don't think it runs so smooth anymore. Let me tell you why. Let's start with Clementinum, this beautiful Baroque library that I'm sure is on your bucket list if you're coming to Prague. The library can only be seen as part of a guided tour, which runs several times a day. You can't actually enter the library, you can only view it from the doorway. That's because they don't want our filthy fingers running on those century-old spines or even breathing on them. So the first half of the tour gives you the small sneak peek of the library, and the second half of the tour is spent at Clementinum Tower with a stunning view of Prague city center. Currently the adult ticket costs 380 crowns and you can buy it either online or on site. But, and this is important, not all tickets are sold online. So even if their website says that they're sold out, there's still a big chance you will be able to get a spot on the tour if you just stop by their ticket office and ask. Now about the early bird discount. It is available for only the first 2 tours of the day that start at 9 AM, and it became so popular you can only now get it online in advance. We were checking their website now, for example, they're sold out for tomorrow and for the day after tomorrow. So you really have to plan this visit ahead of time if you want to get 50% off. And also these days, when you pass by Clementinum at 9 AM, there's a long queue of people who are, I'm sure, also trying to get that early bird discount, but it is very unlikely they're gonna get it, because the tour capacity is limited to 20 people, so they're just not able to take everyone who shows up. That outgrowing demand is only the problem at Clementinum. I'm gonna talk about Old Town Hall and other sites a little bit later. Of course, if you made a reservation online and you have the e-ticket, you don't have to line up, you go straight to the ticket office and wait for the guide there. But there is one more thing to mention about Clementinum. Don't join the Czech tours unless you don't speak Czech. They offer tours in several languages, such as Czech and English. So we ask you guys, if you don't speak Czech, please don't join their Czech tour. Their guides are struggling with it, because what happens is that when their English tour is sold out, the tourists who don't speak Czech join the Czech tour instead, and then because they don't understand what's going on, are asking the guide to translate everything to them. This happened when we went there for a tour. There was a family that did not speak Czech, but they joined the Czech tour anyway, and of course they were asking the guide about the library and everything, and the guide looked a little bit annoyed because that prolongs the tour unnecessarily, and since they're running tours every 30 minutes, they don't want to create a delay for their colleagues. Alright, to sum up Clementinum, if you want an early bird discount, you have to book the tour online in advance. If you just want to visit Clementinum without the discount, stop by their cash desks if you see that their website says that they're sold out. And don't join the Czech language tour if you don't speak Czech. Alright, let's move on to the Old Town Hall, where you can find the famous astronomical clock. It used to be that the ticket to the Old Town Hall would include 3 things: the entrance to the tower, the guided tour of the interiors, and the underground. It is not the case anymore. Now online you can buy only skip the line ticket. It costs 450 crowns and it does not include the elevator ride to the top of the tower. What it includes is skipping the line downstairs at the ticket desks. If there is a line at the entrance to the actual tower, you will not be able to skip that line. So I would have called it skip half the line ticket, but I guess it's not really marketable. Now let's talk about the interiors. You can still take the guided tour of the interiors of the Old Town Hall, but you have to pay extra for it and you can't book it online. You have to book it at their ticket office. They usually run tours several times a day, but that's based on demand, so you have to ask their staff about it. We've taken the tour of the Old Town Hall about a year ago, but unfortunately on the day of our visit they had some some events inside, so we were not able to visit all of the town hall interiors. They only brought us to the chapel and then to the underground. So that was more of an exception because we spent more time in the underground, which we kind of liked, but that's not how they normally do it. So if you want to make sure that it's going to be fully opened on the day of your visit, you have to stop by their office on the Old Town Square and ask them about it. Quick note, people often think that when they buy tickets to the Old Town Hall, they're gonna see the astronomical clock mechanism. Astronomical clock is the oldest clock of this type in Europe. It was first installed to the clock tower in 1410, so the mechanism is really old and valuable. But unfortunately, you cannot see it at all, even as part of the guided tour. They just don't let people inside. The only part that you will be able to view is the back rooms where the figures of apostles are chilling. Old Town Hall, as well as other Prague towers, do offer early bird discount, but you can't buy it online. Look how tall the steps are. It's like half of my leg. It'll work off. Look who is down there! It is 100 Spires City Tours, the most fun free tour in Prague. We will leave a link down below so you can sign up and join one of the tours that run daily.
Oh look, this is the Church of St. James, which now has a paid entrance. It costs 120 crowns. So if you want to visit one of the most haunted churches in Prague now, you have to pay an admission fee.
Now let's quickly talk about Prague Castle, because I know some of you will be asking about it in the comments. Prague Castle is one attraction in Prague where I don't recommend buying tickets online. Firstly, because their website is not really user-friendly, to put it lightly. And you still have to print your tickets, even if you buy them online. I know, Prague Castle is still stuck in the previous century. At least they don't make us use quill and ink. If you want to buy tickets to the Prague Castle, I suggest buying them in the castle itself. They have several cash desks, and even if there is a line, it's usually pretty quick. I would say 10-15 minutes, because they have many cash desks inside, so there are many people working there. Another reason why I don't recommend buying tickets to the Prague Castle online is because there's a huge amount of reseller websites that mark up the price for the castle tickets slightly, and I don't think it's worth it, because often they make it look like you're gonna get some services for that markup, but those services are very limited time-wise as well. Alright, and now to our kind of short news blasting roundup. Prague is no longer the best place to live in the Czech Republic. Once the top-ranked region, Prague has slipped to the 7th place, with analysts pointing to traffic and social infrastructure as major concerns dragging the capital down. The findings show that Prague now leads in several negative indicators, including the highest number of crimes per 1,000 inhabitants, the lowest crime clearance rate, and the highest rate of road accidents per 1,000 kilometers. In contrast, the South Bohemian region climbed to the top. And let's talk about some things that have reopened and closed since our last Prague update. What has reopened is the iconic chlebičky spot Zlatý Kříž. We have been there in one of our last videos. It was delicious, so we recommend it. I'm dreaming about going there again. It was very tasty. And also, surprisingly, Kasárna Karlín had managed to reopen, but only in the provisional state. If you don't know anything about it, you can check out our last update and learn more. Basically now, they did open some stands and tents inside of the Kasárna, but they don't have access to the buildings yet. So the bar and everything should still be closed. But you can stop by and check it out, but we will definitely give them a shout out again once they reopen fully. And what is still closed is Prague Funicular. It's gonna be closed till at least spring 2026. So if you're planning to visit Petřín Tower, what you can do is to take a tram number 22 to a stop called Pohořelec, go up to Strahov Monastery, go around it through the park, and that's how you can get to Petřín Tower pretty quickly. Some other major attractions that are still closed are Klausen Synagogue and Ceremonial Hall in the Jewish Quarter, so be aware of that when you're buying the ticket to the Jewish Quarter museums. These two sites are not gonna be included. And Museum of Prague. Embarrassingly, I had promised you guys that they're gonna reopen soon. They used to say spring 2025. Well, it's July. It is still closed. The new stage and the famous Cafe Nona of the National Theatre had also closed down for a reconstruction. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you found our update useful for your next trip to Prague. I hope you also liked our new setup here. That's an improvised studio. And this is a beautiful painting of Václav Brožík. This is not something I drew myself. I wish I'm much worse than this guy. It portrays a very interesting event in Czech history. If you know what it portrays, please leave it in the comments. And if you don't, I will tell you in our next video. Bye!